This woman gave her testimony, explaining how she started sleeping with Baltasar while she was still a university student. Even after finishing her studies, she continued the relationship with him until she got married. Despite being married, she kept cheating on her husband with Baltasar, who also had a wife.
It all started when I was a university student in Malabo, juggling my studies in finance with the occasional networking event to secure a future internship. That's how I met Baltasar Ingonga, a powerful man leading the National Financial Investigation Agency. He was charismatic, well-dressed, and had an aura of authority that made him stand out in every room. At first, our encounters were purely professional. I had attended an economic seminar where he was a guest speaker. After the event, I asked him a question about financial crime regulations, and he seemed impressed with my curiosity. He handed me his card and told me to reach out if I ever needed career advice. I didn't think much of it until I emailed him weeks later, asking if there were internship opportunities in his agency. He responded surprisingly fast and invited me for coffee at a discreet cafe near the harbor. That was the first of many meetings. Over time, our conversations shifted from finance to personal matters. He told me about the pressures of his position, the political complexities, and the loneliness that came with power. I found myself drawn to his world, one of secrecy, influence, and wealth. He was married, of course, and I knew this was dangerous, but there was an undeniable attraction between us. Our relationship remained hidden, built on late-night phone calls, secret meetings in private apartments, and weekend getaways disguised as business trips. He introduced me to luxury designer bags, fine wine, and high-end restaurants, things I could never afford as a student. But with secrecy came risks. His position in the financial agency meant he had many enemies. One evening, he warned me to be careful with who I spoke to. People watch, he said, and they talk. The paranoia grew. One day, I noticed a black SUV parked near my apartment for hours. Another time, a colleague at the university mentioned seeing me at an exclusive restaurant with someone important. The tension became unbearable. Eventually, we both knew the affair had an expiration date. His career and family couldn't withstand the scandal, and I was nearing graduation, ready to start my own path. The last time I saw him, he handed me an envelope with money, not as a transaction, but as a parting gift, a way to help me start fresh. I left Equatorial Guinea soon after, carrying with me the memories of a love that was never meant to be. It was reckless, intoxicating, and filled with the thrill of the forbidden. But in the end, secrets always have a way of catching up. And some affairs are best left in the past. 2 years passed after I left Equatorial Guinea. I built a new life abroad, working in finance just like I had always planned. But despite the distance and time, I never quite forgot Baltasar Ingonga, the man who had introduced me to a world of power, secrecy, and forbidden passion. Then, an opportunity brought me back. A multinational investment firm was expanding its presence in Equatorial Guinea, and I was offered a position as a financial consultant. It was a dream job, high-paying, prestigious, but deep down, I knew there was another reason I accepted. I wanted to see him again. My return was quiet. I didn't tell many people, and I kept my presence under the radar. But I knew it was only a matter of time before he found out. And he did. One evening, just weeks after I arrived, I received a message from an unknown number. "You're back." That was it. No name, no details, but I knew exactly who it was. My hands trembled as I typed back. Yes. A few days later, he arranged a meeting. This time, it wasn't in a discreet cafe or a luxury hotel, it was in his private residence, far from prying eyes. When I walked in, I saw the same man I had left behind years ago. Older, perhaps a little wearier, but still exuding that same powerful energy. We didn't speak much at first. The silence between us was heavy, filled with everything unsaid over the years. But the moment he touched my face, I knew we were never really over. Rekindling our affair was dangerous. He was still a powerful man, still married, and now, with even more to lose. But neither of us could resist. This time, things were different. He was more cautious, more paranoid. He never called from his personal phone, only from burner numbers. We met in hidden locations, private villas, offshore retreats, and secret apartments in the heart of Malabo. But I also noticed something else. He was in trouble. He never spoke directly about his work, but from the bits and pieces I gathered, he was caught in a political storm. There were whispers of financial investigations closing in on him. Some of his closest allies had been arrested, and it was clear that the walls were closing in. One night, as we lay in bed, he turned to me and said, "If anything happens to me, leave the country immediately." That was the first time I felt real fear. Sleeping again. It happened faster than either of us expected. A week later, news broke that several high-ranking officials were under investigation for corruption and embezzlement. Baltasar was among them. His name was all over the headlines, and rumors swirled that an arrest was imminent. I knew then that our time was over for good. Before he disappeared from public view, he sent me one last message. "Forget me." I didn't reply. Instead, I packed my bags and left. Equatorial Guinea once again, this time knowing I would never return. Some love stories don't have happy endings. Some affairs burn too bright, too fast, and leave nothing but ashes. But even now, in the quiet moments of my life, I sometimes wonder, was he thinking of me too? 5 months after leaving Equatorial Guinea in the wake of Baltasar's downfall, I found myself back in the country but under very different circumstances. This time, I wasn't alone. I had married Matthew, a successful French businessman I met during my time in Paris. He was kind, stable, and offered me a life far from the dangers and secrets I had once lived in. When he was offered a lucrative contract to oversee a large infrastructure project in Equatorial Guinea, he suggested we move there together. On the surface, I was the picture of a devoted wife, graceful, supportive, and well-adjusted to my new life. But deep down, I knew the moment my plane touched the ground in Malabo, Baltasar was still in my blood. Despite his fall from grace, Baltasar Ngonga had not disappeared. He had survived the scandal, though his power had diminished. Instead of being arrested, he had leveraged his influence to negotiate a quieter position, less public but still deeply connected to the political and financial elite. And it didn't take long for him to find out I was back. One evening, while attending a formal dinner with Matthew and several foreign investors, I felt a familiar gaze on me. I turned my head ever so slightly and saw him, standing near the bar, watching me. My breath caught. He looked different, leaner, more hardened, with a quiet intensity in his eyes. But the moment our eyes met, the years and the distance disappeared. Later that night, I received a message from an unknown number. "Tomorrow. The place you remember. Falling again." The next day, I made an excuse to my husband, something about meeting an old colleague for coffee. Instead, I drove to a secluded villa outside the city, a place that had once been ours. When I saw him, we didn't speak. We just fell into each other's arms as if no time had passed. The heat, the danger, the madness of it all, it was still there. I told myself it was just once, just to say goodbye properly. But that was a lie. Once was never enough with him. A double life. For months, I lived 2 lives. By day, I was the perfect wife, attending business functions with Matthew, smiling for photographs, playing the role of the sophisticated expat. By night, I belonged to Baltasar, stolen moments in secret apartments, hushed phone calls, reckless encounters that left me breathless. He would whisper, "You're still mine." And the worst part? I believed him. But it couldn't last forever. One evening, after another secret rendezvous, I arrived home to find Matthew sitting at the dining table, an open envelope in front of him. My heart stopped when I saw what was inside: photos of me and Balthazar together. Someone had been watching us. Matthew didn't speak at first. Then, in a cold, measured voice, he asked, "How long?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. There was no excuse, no lie that could undo what I had done. That night, my marriage shattered. Matthew left for France the next day, and I knew there was no going back. I had burned everything for a man I could never truly have. The final goodbye. I met Balthazar one last time. This time, it wasn't in secrecy. No shadows, no locked doors, just two people standing in the open, knowing the end had finally come. "I lost everything for you," I told him. He lit a cigarette, exhaling slowly before looking at me with a small, knowing smile. "No, you lost everything for yourself." And just like that, it was over. I stayed in Equatorial Guinea, rebuilding my life piece by piece. But I knew one thing: Balthazar Ngonga would always be my greatest mistake and my greatest addiction. I told myself that it was over. That I would move on, rebuild, and maybe even find a way to reconcile with Matthew. But the truth, I couldn't forget Balthazar. I tried. After Matthew left for France, I buried myself in work, attending high-profile financial meetings, networking with investors, and keeping up the appearance of a composed woman who had simply made a mistake. I told myself that what I had with Balthazar was lust, not love, and addiction to danger, not a real connection. But I was lying to myself. Every time I saw a black SUV pass by, I wondered if it was him. Every time my phone buzzed, I hoped it was an unknown number. Every time I walked into a room full of powerful men in suits, I searched for his face. Balthazar was everywhere, not in person, but in my mind. At night, I would wake up in a cold sweat, dreaming of his touch. I would reach for my phone, fighting the urge to dial his number. I hated him. I loved him. I wanted him gone. I wanted him near. And the worst part? He didn't chase me. He didn't call. He didn't text. He didn't come looking for me. He let me suffer in my silence. I lasted 2 months before I caved. One evening, after too much wine, I found myself dialing the number I swore I had deleted. I knew it was reckless, but I needed to hear his voice. "I was wondering how long you'd last." His voice was calm, amused, as if he had been expecting this. I didn't reply, only whispered, "I can't stop thinking about you." His laugh was low and knowing. "Then don't." And just like that, I was his again. Back into the fire. It started with stolen meetings in the middle of the night. Secret messages, lingering touches in public places, brief encounters that burned hotter than before. This time, there were no illusions of love. We both knew what this was, a need neither of us could shake. But something was different now. Balthazar had changed. He was colder, more ruthless. He still had power, but his position was more fragile. He was playing a dangerous game in the world of politics and finance, and I was just another risk he was willing to take. And yet, I couldn't stay away. I had already lost my marriage for him. Now, I was risking my own sanity. One night, after another secret meeting, I asked him, "What are we doing?" He smirked, lighting a cigarette, the glow casting shadows over his sharp features. "We're doing what we've always done. He exhaled slowly, his dark eyes watching me. Then stop. But we both knew I wouldn't. Balthasar Ingonga was my addiction. And I wasn't ready to quit. The night he was arrested, I should have seen the signs. Balthasar had called me that afternoon, his voice calm but urgent. Meet me tonight. Usual place. There was something different in his tone, something final. I arrived at the private villa just after sunset. The air was thick with humidity, and the tension between us was heavier than usual. He barely spoke at first, just poured himself a drink and sat in silence. "You're quiet tonight," I said, trying to read his expression. He smirked, but there was no real amusement behind it. "Tell me, did you ever regret it? Losing your husband for me?" I hesitated, knowing the answer but unwilling to say it out loud. Instead, I just whispered, "No." He nodded, as if he expected that answer. Then, for the first time in a long time, he pulled me close, not with urgency, not with hunger, but with something almost resembling tenderness. A goodbye without saying the words. Then, just as I was about to leave, the world shattered. Balthasar got arrested. The villa's doors burst open. Armed officers stormed inside, their voices sharp and commanding. "Balthasar Ingonga, you are under arrest." I froze. He didn't. Balthasar just exhaled slowly, like a man who knew this moment would come. As they forced him to his feet, he turned to me with the smallest of smiles and said, "I told you this would destroy you." I wanted to move, to say something, to stop them. But I couldn't. I was just a spectator to the downfall of the man I could never quit. As they dragged him away, I knew this was truly the end. And yet, as I stood there, heart pounding, hands shaking, one thought echoed in my mind. If he called me again, would I still go? The terrifying answer,